Hello to my Griffin artists. It's Halloween time. And this is your teacher, Mrs. Hugh, pretending to be Dracula. But we'll get to Dracula later. Right now, today, we are going to learn how to draw a pumpkin. And I don't know about you, but when the leaves start changing color and I start seeing pumpkins on people's doorsteps, and if I drive past a farmer's market and they have pumpkins outside, I get pretty excited. I get visions of Halloween candy dancing in my head, and then I can barely contain my excitement. And I kind of feel like you probably like Halloween too. And what could be more Halloween than a pumpkin? And I went to our local farmer's market and I picked up some pumpkins and thought, you know what? The Griffins and Mrs. Hugh, we're going to learn how to draw and paint pumpkins together. So here's a pumpkin. It's a little bit wet because it was outside last night. But I want to get you a good view. There's my pumpkin. And it has its little pumpkin stalk there. And you see that there's ridges coming down. That's how pumpkins look. Let me show you the other one that I have. This one is much shorter. And you know, it's funny, when I was little, I'd say, oh, what is that? I don't like the other colors. But actually, as I've gotten older, I appreciate all these cool, different colors that you see in a pumpkin. Sometimes they're just not all a perfect orange. They might have other colors in them. And now you even see like white pumpkins, and you can see yellow pumpkins, and just, you know, a lot of different types, which is also pretty fun too. But today we're going to learn how to draw and paint a pumpkin. And we're going to concentrate on making our drawings look 3D as opposed to flat. What do I mean by that? Well, here's a pumpkin, right? You're looking at that and saying, yeah, there's a pumpkin, and then you could draw a little face on it. Well, our pumpkins are going to be a little bit different. We're going to be adding lines, and we're going to be adding different types of colors to our pumpkin that's going to make it appear like it is three-dimensional, right? That is sort of popping out to us. And on this pumpkin, you can see that there's lighter parts, and that's because the sun is reflecting off of that pumpkin. And you just see different shades of orange that's showing you that that pumpkin has lines in it and has little bulges and things like that. So that's what we're going to do today, and I'm going to walk through it with you like always. And we're going to learn how to do it a few different ways on our piece of nice watercolor paper that I brought to school for you to bring home. So for today's lesson, I want you to have a pencil. I want you to have your beautiful watercolors. I want you to, your watercolors also have the paintbrush in them. I want you to have some water to dip your colors in. You're going to need a little rag or a napkin to dab your paintbrush. And I would like you to have a pencil that has an eraser, or get your own eraser. And I would like you to have either a black Sharpie or a black crayon. The reason why I don't want you using a black marker is that when you go to watercolor your picture, the black marker is going to bleed and it's going to spread out. If you use a crayon, crayons are made of wax, and when you put water on it, it doesn't affect the crayon. And we're going to actually be doing some fun projects with crayons and paints. But the same thing with the Sharpie. If you go over your lines with the Sharpie and then you go to watercolor, the Sharpie won't run because the Sharpie is permanent. That's what makes Sharpie so scary to parents. We don't like anything like you walking around with anything super permanent in your hands. Okay, so for me today, I'm going to use a crayon. So let's start drawing a pumpkin, and we're gonna do this 2 different ways, okay? The first way we're going to do it is we're going to draw an oval. Oh, first of all, here's your paper. This is horizontal when you hold it the long way, and then this is vertical when you're holding it straight up. We want it horizontal because we're going to be looking out at the horizon, and we're going to be doing a little bit of a picture here, okay? We want the space that the horizontal gives us. Okay, so let's do our first type of pumpkin. And that's going to be an oval, but an oval that's going up and down as opposed to side and side and side. Okay, so we're going to start off with our oval. Then from there, we're going to be making almost like a backward C shape off of that oval. So like a half oval. There you go. And then we're going to do that on the other side. Okay? Now we're going to do another backward C shape. We're making the ridges of the pumpkin. So here we go. We're going to do that again. And we're going to do one on the other side. Voila! So now I've got a pretty nice, plump, fat pumpkin. Then at the top, I'm going to go in and I'm going to draw my stem. Okay? And the stem is almost like a wave motion. You can go up and then down and then back again. If you mess up or you don't like it, that's what erasers are for. Okay? So now we have one type of pumpkin there. And what that's showing us is the pumpkin isn't flat. The pumpkin is round and it has these ridges that you see here. Or if you have a pumpkin on your doorstep, you can go out and look at it, right? They have these little ridges. Now, let me show you another way that you can draw your pumpkin. And if you need to, just pause the video. You'll make a dot, and then you're gonna come down and make another dot right underneath it, okay? And then you're gonna connect those 2 dots. And then from those dots, you're going to make curved lines on both sides of the pumpkin. 1, 2, we have 2 on one side. We have 2 on the other. I could end my pumpkin right there, but I think I'm gonna make another big pumpkin. And so we're gonna do another line. So you're connecting those ridges from point 1 all the way down to point 2. Now, you can leave it like this, your pumpkin, or you can go in with your eraser and you can erase that line that goes down the middle. It's up to you whether you want to keep that there or not. Okay, so now we'll come in and we'll do our stem. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about the stem. To give our stem some dimension, at the top of the stem, we're going to draw a little circle like this at the top of the stem. Do you see what I did? Almost like a little oval at the top. And then I'm going to erase that little line. And that gives our stem some dimension too. Do you see? Now we know that that stem has this top and it's going down from the side. Here, our stem is very flat. So I'm going to go back in there. I'm going to go up to the top of the stem and make that same circle to give that stem some dimension. Do you see the difference? Then you can go into your stem and you can make ridges, because if you look at this pumpkin, you can see that there are ridges. And actually this stem is very jagged, right? You could draw that too, but you can see that it doesn't come up into a point and it's not flat, it's actually thick and round, and that's what we're showing on the stems on our page. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to my drawing and I'm going to make some little ridges there. Okay. So these are our little practice drawings. Let's do a tall pumpkin over on this end. And I'm going to use the same technique that I used for the first one. I'm going to draw a tall oval, and then from there, I'm going to do my little C's coming out from the side, connecting them. And then my stem. At the top of the stem, I'm going to do my little circle there. Okay. And so now I have my 3 little pumpkins. Have you ever heard the song? 5 little pumpkins sitting on a fence or a gate. That's, we got to find out. Is it a fence or is it a gate? But this is 3 little pumpkins. 3 little pumpkins sitting on a gate or a fence. We'll find out. The first one said, oh, Mrs. Hugh, your singing voice isn't very good. Okay, so now we're going to go in with our pumpkins here and sort of keep practicing our pumpkins. But now we have these 3 3D pumpkins right here. Very exciting. So now we will go in and paint these pumpkins. And I'm going to take my water and I'm going to show you. I'm going to dip my water and I'm going to go in with my orange. Remember, we want to get, these are watercolors, and that means that it's water with color in it. So you take your water, you don't want it too watery, and you don't want your paintbrush too dry, somewhere nice and in between. And the best way, I think, to achieve that perfect amount of water is dipping your paintbrush in your water, coming up and just dabbing this side just a little bit, and then going and choosing your paint. Now, we've made our pumpkins with lines that make it look 3D, and now we're going to add color that's going to make it 3D. Oh my goodness, guess what? Mrs. Hugh made a mistake. I skipped a step. I forgot that I needed to go back in and go over my lines with my crayon or my Sharpie. So sorry. See, even teachers make mistakes. Okay, so here we go. We're going to go in and we're going to go over our lines with either our black crayon or our black Sharpie. If you don't have either one of those things, you could use maybe like a black pen that you don't think would run or would bleed into your watercolors. But I'm going to go through with my black crayon. Now, if you don't have a black crayon, but you have a brown crayon, or even an orange crayon, that would work as well. So what I'm doing is I'm just going in and I'm going over the lines that I drew of my pumpkin, okay? Going up and I'm going over all my lines. And we did it first in pencil so that we could erase whatever we didn't like. And if you're going over it in Sharpie or in your crayon, that means you're happy with what you have there. All right, there we go. Whew. Glad I remembered. All right, so now we're going to add the color. Now, I know that I'm going fast. So again, just reminding you to just pause it. Okay, if we were in the classroom, we'd be going a lot slower because we'd all be together. And so now I'm going to go in and I'm going to paint my pumpkins orange. Okay, just a lightly painted all over orange. Oh, you know what? As I'm painting this, I'm just reminded of how much I just love to paint. It's so fun to have a white piece of paper and to create something on it and to watch those vibrant colors appear because of something that you did. Pretty cool. And that's what art is. It's about you creating something out of nothing, whether that's a painting, whether that's a drawing, whether that's a sculpture. And that's what we're going to be doing this year. So I'm just going in with my orange and I am painting over my pumpkins. Now, another thing is once you've gone over your lines in a Sharpie or in a crayon, you could go back and erase your pencil marks if you wanted to. I didn't do that because I sort of got my crayon right on top of my pencil marks, so I wasn't too worried about those showing. So now I went over with my paint, and I want certain parts of this pumpkin to pop out and some to what we say is recede or go back. Just like a pumpkin isn't flat, some parts are in the front. And usually those are the parts that are in the front are being hit by the light, and the light makes them lighter. So just think about that. When something hits an object, when the light hits an object, that light is making that piece of the object lighter. So for example, with this pumpkin, the light is going to be hitting right in the front. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna take some yellow paint. That's right, yellow paint. Go in there, get a little bit of that on there, and I'm gonna go to the front of my pumpkin and I'm going to put some yellow in. And I'm gonna put a little yellow here right down the center of those little segments, because that's the part that's going to be being hit by the sun, and the light is going to be reflecting off of those parts. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my yellow streaks right down the center. Then I'm gonna go back, wash my paintbrush off, get my more orange paint, okay? And I'm gonna go and I'm gonna put darker oranges where those black lines are, because those are the creases of my pumpkin. Those are the parts that are sort of, see how I put my hands like this? And where my fingers touch, those are sort of the creases, and those are darker, but my palms are sort of lighter. So as you see here, oh, heavy pumpkin. Do you see where they're darker? That's where the creases are. So you're gonna put your darker paint there, and the effect is a popping out effect. Isn't that cool? Yes, Mrs. Hugh, it is cool. All right, so I'm gonna go in and I'm going to use my darker paints, my darker orange, right? Now, how do you get a darker orange as opposed to a lighter orange? Okay, let's do a little exercise. So here I have my piece of paper, right? And I'm going to take a lot of water, dab my side. I'm going to put my paintbrush into my paint, okay? And I'm going to paint here. Now that's sort of a vibrant orange. If I go in and I dilute that orange a little bit with some water, it's gonna make it a little bit lighter. See how it's getting lighter the more water that I add? You're seeing pigment. That's a word called pigment. So now I took a very bright orange and I added water to it, making it lighter and lighter and lighter. See how lighter it's getting? If I went back and wanted a darker orange, I would put less water in it. So watch. That's my darker orange because it has less water in it. And as I add the water, it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. That is like hue or intensity or shading. And that's another element of art. And so that's what we're learning about today too. We've learned about lines, how to curve our lines so that it's making our pumpkins kind of look three-dimensional and look like they're puffed out. And we learned about how to add color so that our object that we're painting looks like it has more dimension. That's sort of what you saw here too. Okay, so now I'm pretty happy with the color and the painting of my pumpkins. I'm gonna go in now and paint my stems. You'll see that you have this kind of neat little really light brown and a darker brown and a black. And you get to choose how you want to paint your stems. You might choose to do them green, or you might do brown. I'm going to, and if you look at the stem on this pumpkin, I see that there's dark brown and light brown. Parts of it even look white. Do you see that? Like right here. And then there even looks like there's a little bit of a black in it. So I might use all three colors. I might use the very light and this darker brown and then the black. So I'm gonna go in first with my light, and I have to make sure that I clean off my paintbrush so that there's no orange left on it. So I'm gonna go in. This is gonna be the lightest color. And I'm gonna go in first and do the lightest color first. And now another fun little trick is when you paint something with watercolor, the beauty is if you don't want it as dark as it is, or you feel like it's too much on there, you just take your napkin or your paper towel and you just go in and dab. Look at that, it comes right up. And now you can see those black lines a little bit better. So I went in with my lightest brown. Now I'm gonna go in with a little bit of a darker brown and do some lines in there as well. I'm just going in and painting different parts of it. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Now, today is all about pumpkins. So I want you to hold on to these pumpkins. And then next week, we're going to talk about leaves. We're concentrating a lot on fall. And then we're going to move into some fun Halloween things. But these pumpkins, we're going to end up cutting and putting on a collage, of sort of a fall collage. So hold on to these pumpkins. Before we go, I want to do one more big pumpkin for you to see, just so we can go over the technique one more time. So these were our small ones. Now, I'm going to take a piece of paper, and I'm going to do that little connect the dot technique. A dot at the top. I'm going to go down, down towards the bottom where I want my pumpkin to end. So now I've decided this is the height that I want my pumpkin. If I said, you know what, I want my pumpkin taller, then I'm going to move my dots further apart. Don't move your dot up too high because you won't have room for what? The stem or the hat. I love a hat. Okay, so I've decided that this is about the height I want my pumpkin. And I'm gonna connect my lines. Do you like my sound effects? I don't know, who knows. Okay, so now I'm gonna connect. I'm gonna make my line come out like a backward sort of C or a moon shape from the top to the bottom. I'm gonna do the same on the other side, from the top to the bottom. Now this pumpkin looks like it needs a hamburger. I want to make it a little bit bigger. From the top to the bottom, from the top to the bottom. And I think I'll make it a little bit fatter. A little bit fatter. Okay. And I'm going to go in now, and I am going to erase this line in the middle. And I'm gonna kind of erase that little dot there so you can't really see that that's what I was doing. I'm gonna go up to my top, remember this? I'm going to make my stem, and with my little circle at the top to make it three-dimensional, and I'll do some lines. Okay, so now I'm gonna go in with my Sharpie or my crayon, and I'm gonna go over my lines Again, pause the video if you need to, because I know that I'm working quickly. Okay. There we go. And I'm going to go up to the top. Remember this little circle there. And I'm going to do my lines. Now on this one, I can definitely see my pencil marks. So I'm going to go in and erase those pencil marks like they never happened. Shh, it'll be our little secret. Okay. Alrighty, now I'm going to go in and paint. Now, if you were using crayons, you could do the same thing with crayons, achieving this darker orange versus the lighter orange with one orange crayon. And how would you do that? Well, the darker you want your crayon color, I know you know the answer to this because you've been coloring with crayons for a long time, is you press harder on the crayon and you would make a more intense or a darker orange. And the lighter you press on the crayon, the lighter the orange is. You're saying, yes, Mrs. Hugh, I know that. This is not my first crayon rodeo. Okay, so now, that's a saying you might not be familiar with. I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna do my darker oranges along the seam, because that's the part that's a little bit more shaded, so it's darker. And we're gonna go in along those black seams. I'm gonna do my darker orange. And in the middle is where I'm gonna have my lighter orange. So I'm gonna put more water. Going to do more water. So if I do this, I go back, I add a little bit of water to my brush, and then I can go in and make it lighter. Another technique is you can go in with your paper towel. Look at that. Makes it much lighter. Just kind of play around with it. And once I've added my orange, and I have it as shaded as I want to be, so I'm going to make my creases. Watercolor's also very forgiving, which is why I love to use it with my kids first, because if you make a mistake or you don't like something, you can go back in and you can just pretty much get rid of it with your paper towel. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to do my yellow in the centers, the center of my pumpkin segments. You would call these segments. That's sort of a math term. Okay, so see how that is? And now I'm going to go up and I'm going to do my stem. And when I first do my stem, I'm not really happy with the fact that it covers up all those black lines, so I'm going to go in and do that. So here is a larger pumpkin. So now you see how we have the large pumpkin with the paint that makes it look like it's popping out. I feel like the light is hitting this, the sunlight is hitting this pumpkin right here. And here are our 3 smaller ones that we worked on. So hold on to these, okay? You can keep them at home in a safe place. Next week, we're going to cut them out and we're going to put them on a collage. We're going to make a collage of these, sort of an autumn collage. Okay? And then after that, we're going to learn how to draw Dracula. Okay, my Griffins, have a wonderful day.